Welcome to Inside Out, the Emotional Awareness Podcast, a Mentalus Academy production. Let's learn more about ourselves, inside and out.
So hi, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast called Inside Out. And today we're very happy and very grateful to have Inga here with us, who will allow her in a second to introduce the subject she's chosen to talk about for today. And Inga, thank you for coming. We're really happy that you decided to join us today. This should be an interesting topic for everybody. So we'll allow you to introduce it.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. This is awesome. It's fun. I like to talk, and I like this particular subject. This mind-body connection affects us all so deeply, and for me, it's easy to talk about because it affects my body, my mind, and my mind affects my body affects my mind so clearly. I can see it so clearly, or feel it so clearly, that it was just an easy topic for me to talk about. And I've thought about specific things that have happened to me, but it happens to everybody. Everybody can affect their body and create inflammation because they're worried about something or stressed or whatever. So what to do about it? That's the big thing. So that's why I want to ask you. I know breath work and things like that work, but you guys, I have some questions. If somebody came to you and they thought perhaps their mind and worries were affecting them in a painful kind of way, because everybody knows depression can give you inflammation and things like that, how would you approach it to heal the body? How would you guys do that?
We can start like way in the past. I say Freud even started that, if you can imagine, when he started his work with people and how the effect of events impact their bodies. So how we approach it is kind of roughly make the link between what is causing the pain or the specific situation in the body and the related situation from the past. When I work with somatic modalities, it's like actually sometimes when we say something, even just the word or just the thought of something kind of triggers something in our body. And then when we start to be mindful about that and work around it, we can know the patterns. The idea is not, it will always happen. This is the body's reaction for whatever mental health, whatever mental things we are going. It's to be mindful about it and to be able to prevent it from the harm that it can cause. That is very roughly, I took it from Freud till 2025.
So working on triggers, trying to figure out what your triggers are.
Roughly it is triggers, yes. It is always triggers, or something that we thought about, something we felt, something we thought it was. Daniela, you were to say something.
Yeah, I was going to just piggyback on what you said, Nedzin, and say, yes, it's so some of those triggers, unless we're aware of them, the physical manifestation is going to happen, right? So you're going to start to feel either pain or things are going to start happening in your body, but you won't necessarily know why until you understand those triggers. And the triggers are usually not rooted in today. It's almost like at a physical level, your body has encoded certain things that have happened in the past, and repetitions of those things or triggers that bring those back can actually bring back the physical sensation. So I think we've all had the experience, for example, of tension and what that does to our body, right? So you feel tense in a particular situation, your body tenses up, your muscles tense up. Next morning you wake up with a sore neck. And, what triggered that? It's like those links are important. Is that what you were trying to say, Nedzin?
Yes and no. That is what happens over time. But I think it's not just the connection. Our body always reacts. So even if it's a new trigger, like you just mentioned, if it's a stress of a situation that happened to me yesterday, the body would still react. What I'm trying to say is not if we acknowledge the triggers, it doesn't mean we won't be feeling any physical sensation. The physical sensation is a reaction to any stressor, outside stressor. I don't know if it's clear for you, Inga.
Yes, it is. I was just trying to think of scenarios in my life where a sudden word, more stress, like if somebody said something to me and sudden tension goes straight into my lower back. That's where mine goes. Eventually, that kind of stress over time goes into my shoulders. I'm aware of my body because I've been trying to figure that out for myself. But what happened, just a word can go straight into my lower back and really tighten it really bad. And like you said, it's going to happen anyway. Daily life. Somebody says something I don't like or that it worries me. It's going to happen anyway. But what my question for you is, these are triggers during the day. They compound my lower back and eventually my shoulders. What can we do about it? I learned breath work, but you don't always remember to do it. Deep breathing when somebody's talking to you is a little awkward. So what would you do? What would you tell somebody to do?
I find to start with you being able to pinpoint how it's going, that's a lifetime work. That is amazing to be able to say, when somebody says that, this is where I feel it and how it kind of moves. This is how we start to be able to pinpoint where it's going, what it's doing to us. I would say I work with the breath, but I also find that sometimes bringing movement to the body in a way release,
Sorry, say that again.
bringing movement.
Movement, yes, absolutely, yeah.
So slight movement for the lower back, you can do that. I'm doing it now. I can move my lower back and you won't even see it. So I find that kind of, in a way, this is how it allows the tension to circulate in the body without it being stuck in a place. So it doesn't have to be strong. It doesn't have to be like deep breath, but it just doesn't stop in one place.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have tools, Daniela, about that.
Actually, you just reminded me, Nedzin. So Nedzin and I work a little bit differently. We have different approaches. We always laugh about it because Nedzin is very much in the body and in physical sensations. And I always say I'm from the neck up. We complement each other well that way. But as you were saying that, Nedzin, what came to mind is, you both know this, but I also work with horses. And one of the things that we do with horses is that when they get tense, when they get to that point where you can feel the tension building up in them, we make them move. And that's how they release that tension as well. So, what's good for them is good for us too. Our nervous system is built the same way. So yeah, so when we feel that, that's a very good point, Nedzin. When we feel that way, maybe just, yes, Inga, it's great that you already know where it is and what's causing it. But then you have to unblock it, and maybe that's something that can help, is that even a slight movement.
Yeah, because stress always activates our nervous system we always have a stress response, and most of the time it is the play dead response. So we freeze.
Yeah.
It hits us and we freeze. And this is how tension gets built. So allowing the body to move, for me, sometimes it's small things, you see, just moving, and I move a lot. It's allowing that to circulate so it's not stuck. Even with that, we can feel the tension sometimes. It's great that you can feel it in your lower back. Sometimes it goes, can I move my feet? Can I move my shoulders? Or it's just one block. So just allowing the body to have the slightest movement, sometimes it's good enough to take us out of that freeze mode.
Yeah, that's great advice. But I guess it's something you have to train yourself to do, because I never even thought of that, especially high stress, you freeze.
Exactly.
Your body freezes, even your mind.
So, when the body freezes, the mind freezes.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, how do I get out of this? Or what can I do to change this or whatever? If I could, let's say I could train myself that when somebody says something that frightens me or whatever, I would just do the subtle movements so that I don't make them uncomfortable, because that's my thing. I don't want to look like a freak or whatever. So if I'm going like, I can't do that. There's no way I could do that to heal my body at the time. But slight movements, and I think you could train yourself to do that, to unlock your back, just to move your shoulder up to unlock your back. What a difference that would make. And then slight breathing instead of holding your breath, which you do as well. Exactly. I find myself, holding your breath is just awful for you in a tense situation. You're right. That's very good advice. I'm going to try to train myself to do that.
Yeah, it is very hard because it complements each other. It's all like a block. When we freeze, the body freezes, the mind freezes, and the breath freezes as well. So it's a combo. But yeah, we need to train ourselves to unlock ourselves from this mode. Sometimes it's just by allowing our brain to function, sometimes by allowing the breath, sometimes by physical sensation. But for me, I find, because I can feel it more with my body than, with my breath as well. So I find that, yeah, moving, slight movements, wiggle your toes, any kind of movements.
The idea there, I think, is a good one, because there's many ways that you can do that. Movement is such, like you said, Inga, taking deep breaths or whatnot is very obvious, but movement is not that obvious. And sometimes it helps you just unstick from the situation too. So let's say you're talking to someone and they've said something that has triggered you. Movement also allows you to, I don't know, even bending down to fix your shoe. That's movement. It also allows you to disconnect from and take a pause from whatever's going on. So it's a question of, and that's what needs to be worked on, is developing the reflex to say, this is triggering me, I'm going to move, whatever movement that is.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Another question, movement, and not everybody can practice that, right? Everybody can practice that, because and now I'm going to think about it. Somebody's going to say something and I'm just going to do a little, yeah, so that's going to help me a lot. And so I'm just thinking on your body, it builds up over time and you end up with a bad back or a sciatic or whatever due to stresses. I find for me and the people around me, it seems to be more mental that creates something like sciatic than actual physical. Who knows? It's probably a bit of both. But my mind creates more of my ailments than anything, any physical movement that I do. I'm talking the span of my life. So do you guys teach something like meditation for people? What's your advice for long-term when the person's on their own trying to work on themselves for this mind-body connection thing?
The body remembers. So people who have, and I have experienced that in my work, the people who have experienced trauma within their body, regardless of the type of trauma, they are more sensitive in that particular place in their body to where it happened. So let's say you were in a car accident, and then I'm just talking about, I'm not going into emotional trauma, and then a car came from your right. So you would be more sensitive in that side because your body had to protect itself. So it gets more tensed in that way. I find being able to make such connections, like you mentioned earlier, that can help a lot, because you will find that you will do this often more. I'm just giving an example. You will tense from the right side, then clenching shoulders. So you would react in response to that specific trauma more than others. In that sense, helping what's triggering kind of release. I don't find everybody can meditate.
Yeah, that's true.
That some people meditate in movement, yeah, which is fine. I would say that asking people to meditate all the time is putting a pressure on them, because if they can't do it, it will put them in a failure situation, which is like, why can't I meditate? Everybody is meditating. Why can't I do that?
Yeah.
So I find in those particular situations, helping them identify their triggers and their response in their body can be more helpful and unlock them, more than just, yeah, I feel this in my way, I can pay attention, more helpful than. I don't know, what do you think, Danielle?
Yeah, and I think that different people have different coping skills too with respect to that. Like you said, Nadine, meditation might work for some, it might not work for others. For some people, it's finding something that they can completely immerse themselves with, which is like meditation. It's more like flow. That's something that heals them, if you will. So it could be music, it could be dance, it could be gardening, it could be anything, but that puts their body back into that sort of more restful, calm, relaxed state, where they can then do like a bit of a scan on themselves and say, okay, what's going on? So it's a question of finding whatever works for the individual person in terms of getting in touch with themselves. So meditation is good for some, it's great, but for other people, it really doesn't work very well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Interesting that I said that because I'm terrible at meditation. Awful. I
Okay.
wish I wish I could do it. People talk about it. I go to these places and people talk about meditation all the time. And I try. I don't even closing my eyes because I'm usually in nature and I just want to look at it. So for me, it would be better going for a walk, going for a kayak, going also playing my harp helps me a lot. So music makes a huge difference too. Getting your mind, you completely immerse yourself and you get your mind. My mind doesn't torture me too bad, but I know people that their mind, if they can't spend time alone because their just mind just tortures themselves. And it's so hard on their body as well. It's awful to watch. But then it's like constant. I suppose you could just always go for a walk or get yourself into music or running if you can do that, because some people's bodies can't take running either. But yeah, what do you do with a person who who's just tortured by their mind? I don't know how to phrase that. I'm sure you have a word for it. But the negative thoughts, let's just say negative thoughts. A young man who has lots of negative thoughts, paranoid thoughts, whatever, stuff like that just ruins their daily life unless they're with friends laughing and getting the dopamines going.
That's a really complex question because it's really a question of what's going on there behind the scenes with that person. It sounds like from the way you're describing it, there's a lot of avoidance going on there. This person is really trying to avoid their life. So they're running to other people and things to occupy themselves and basically just jumping from one thing to another, not to have to face whatever it is they're avoiding.
Yeah.
So unless that person at some point realizes, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing and I need help, it's going to be very difficult for that person to do it on their own. Usually what ends up happening is you can only keep that up for so long and then eventually you crash. And it's
Yeah.
when the person crashes that they end up seeking help. They go into therapy and whatnot. And then that process of trying to figure out what was the original trigger, if you will, what happened that set this all in motion. So we were talking about freeze earlier. This person's probably into flight more than freeze.
True.
And they're running and running all the time. So they never really spend time just with themselves trying to sort it out or figure themselves out. So that's what needs to happen there. And it's hard because then eventually the body does crash. That's what ends up happening.
And I would add to that, because those people, the way you've mentioned it, those people speed up into things. So yeah, it's a flight response. They are running. And for them, it's actually when they slow down, which is very hard for them because slowing down meaning stop being avoidant, meaning getting in touch with what they are experiencing, all the sensations, all the thought. But for them, it's that slowing down that can be very helpful to acknowledge, oh, this is what's happening. And people can run consciously or can run to avoid. We can do everything either out of consciousness or out of avoidance as a protective mechanism. So for those people, it is to be able to acknowledge what is happening in their body. That can be very helpful as well, which is terrifying. I agree.
Yeah. When I started to think about it, these things, you can do that, do the flight response for years, because these problems that create the torturing one's soul is, I suppose, they're so deeply rooted that going and getting them is absolutely terrifying because it hurts.
It hurts, it's terrifying. It has been going for so long that even the idea of it is even more terrifying. There is that buildup that comes with it.
Yeah.
There's also the fear that if I take away this coping mechanism that I have of either fleeing or freezing, then I'm left with no coping mechanism. So often what has to happen is, in parallel with figuring out what the triggers are and what's going on, the person then needs to also be able to develop new and better coping mechanisms, like that allow them to say, okay, I don't need to run all the time because now I know how to cope with this in a healthier way. I can confront it. It's going to be okay. I can work on it. So those are the kind of things that usually are very difficult to do on your own. So you do need the help.
Yeah, it's true. Obviously, when a person, like you said, crashes, they hit bottom, they say in the self-help groups. Once you've hit bottom, then you decide you need help because I suppose it's impossible to do on your own. Some people go to these retreats for ayahuasca and they use like the heavy drugs and whatever to go back into yourself. But oftentimes it's just a blur, that thing, and they never got there and it never really helped. I suppose hitting bottom is all you can do to really save your mind and body connection. It ain't easy.
No, it's not. And the other thing is we're geared biologically as well to avoid pain. So
Yeah.
without insight into what's going on inside of you and why these things are happening to you, even if for some reason like you hit bottom, you can't use, let's say, the flight response anymore, what'll happen is you'll switch to one of the other modes. So you might go from flight to freeze or from flight to fight.
Yeah.
So for example, let's say somebody who's avoidant doesn't want to talk about what's going on, doesn't want to confront what's going on within themselves. When finally pushed against the wall and confronted with it, unless it's done so in a therapeutic way, will just turn around and lash out.
Yeah.
And then like you're just stuck in another defensive mode. So it's tricky and it's hard because it's all meant to avoid pain. So until the person feels that I have other ways to confront my own pain and it's not going to destroy me, they're not likely to give up these coping mechanisms.
Yeah, I think I know I always add this word, but I think until they feel safe enough, whether in a relationship or within their own body or with what's happening, safe enough to face all those fears and to deal with them.
Hey everyone, we hope you are enjoying this podcast. Want to find out more about this topic and much more? Check out our courses at Mentalist Academy. Find out more at www.mentalistacademy.com. And now, back to our podcast.
A question that was coming to mind, which relates to that, is I imagine you guys have seen all over the map. It's rare that somebody comes to you in their 20s and 30s. They must wait, it seems to me, that to really truly feel safe or to hit bottom enough to trust somebody to go into their mind, body, soul and help them, you must see them in their 50s and 60s. And does that happen?
I find people are getting more and more aware at a young age now.
Oh, good. That's good.
Surprisingly, yeah, but it depends, I would say.
Yeah.
What with Daniela?
I would say that it depends on what's happening in their life too. I see a whole range of people from 18 to 80, and it depends on what's happening in their life. So if somebody who's 20 years old has gone through something pretty major that has given them that moment of insight of, oh, look, this is the pattern I usually go to when things like this happen, and I really need help because I don't want to spend the rest of my life this way, they will seek that help. And I think Nadzin is correct in saying that I find too that young people today, and maybe it's because therapy and the connotations of therapy have changed, thankfully, significantly in the last 30, 40 years, that people are much more likely now at a younger age to say, you know what, this is a problem for me. I recognize it. It's an issue. It's negatively affecting my life. I'm going to work on it. So, yeah.
I would say I would add to that a couple of things. I find also parents has been either themselves in therapy or have been also introduced to the idea of mental health. So there is this talk about how can I make my children be healthier emotionally. So it builds up. And to add to what Daniela said about young people, sometimes young people go through a lot, whether themselves, whether they to their life experience, even if they are young. So the pain is obvious even at a young age, and they seek help very young.
You're right in that it's, let's say in the 1950s, it seems to me that people wouldn't talk about having seen a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever. It was embarrassing. And it's not like that now at all. People seek so many with the internet, people seek all kinds of different, either natural ways or psychologists or therapists. There's something that I was reading and thinking about too, is that, I mean, in this new age of knowledge and medicine and all that is incredible. It's fantastic. We're saving lives right and left and helping people's brains, but I don't know when it started, but certainly there seems to be a bit of a cop-out thing because there's a pill for everything. And I find pills are just a mask for well, whatever. They help people. Don't get me wrong, but people do run a lot to pills instead of going in there, and also for their back. So their brain hurts their back, and then they take a pill. That's getting worse. Their pharmaceutical companies love selling their pills. So it's made a disconnect, I think, with the whole go out for a walk instead and loosen your back. It's in the last 50 years. So it's getting better and worse in a way. What do you guys do with that?
I think there's a place for everything. To me, it's not a one or the other. It's how does all of this work in combination with each other? Taking your example of a backache and taking a pill, sometimes you need to take that pill for your backache to get the backache down just enough so that you can actually start working on some of the other stuff. Because if you're in pain all the time, you can't think, you can't really introspect or anything like that. So in conjunction with each other, those things kind of work. It's the same thing with therapy and pharmaceutical treatments. It's been actually proven that the best outcomes are when you combine the two. For example, not for everybody, but certainly for somebody who's had long-standing intractable depression, for example, might benefit from medication because the medication will actually get them to the point where they can step outside of themselves and start to be more introspective and be able to go to therapy and be able to benefit from therapy. So it's really a case by case kind of scenario. And sometimes you're also correct, Inga, in saying that if you're taking something to mask something, that's a problem. And that's true in medicine as well. If you have a fever and you keep taking aspirin to bring down your fever, that's great, but you haven't figured out what's causing the fever in the first place.
Yeah.
I think it also depends on, as Daniela said, on the people. Some people are balanced enough to know that I need the medication or I need to have some kind of pharmaceutical support to be able to function and then seek help to be able to see what's behind it. Other people are just so happy with the medications and they run on it. And others are, no, as Daniela said, I will keep having my back aching until I can't move my knee and then I'm stuck in bed. I think it goes back to the personality and how people cope with things.
Yes. You were making me think of my journey, my whole journey of taking Motrin or whatever it was for the tension in my back, which was caused by my brain, putting it there. And then as I got older, it started to get worse and my whole back was all messed up. And then as I started to take the journey into trying to heal myself, I started to, let's say I got 2 German Shepherds, so I started walking a lot, and I noticed that I never had a backache again because I was walking all the time. And I guess also the happiness the dogs bring you, and if you love dogs. So then I started to think about that. And so I'm a lot more reluctant to take a pill, and I'm a lot more eager to move my body and to get rid of the mental tension and the physical tension, or trying to meditate, which I said I'm terrible at, breath work, things like this, instead of taking pills, because pills are so easy. And they're everywhere. And where I live, there's probably 10 pharmaceutical pharmacies. They're everywhere. But giving a prescription of walking and breathing and stuff like that is good in part and parcel of everything. So that's what I'm trying to do. But I'll run to the pharmacy if I have to, if it's going to help me. But you got to really figure out, like you said, a balance. You need a balance in your life with all these things. Not to refuse pharmacy stuff because it can save your life and make you more comfortable. But yeah, you really need a balance. So that was a very long and drawn out explanation of my journey into trying to find balance and realizing what my mind-body connection does to me. And I've been able to heal myself to a pretty good degree. It works. So what do you guys think about that?
So going back actually to your original point, which was the whole idea of the mind-body connection, one of the issues that has happened over the decades and as the medical field advanced was that there started to be this real disconnect between mind and body, where
Mm,
the
yeah.
body was treated like a physical organism that
Yeah.
is made up of cells and was fixed by chemicals and whatnot. And the mind was completely left out of the equation, like it was two separate things. Like I described Nedzin and I earlier, where
Yeah.
I'm from the neck up and she's from, I wouldn't say she's from the neck down. I'd say she's probably much more holistic than I am. But that's what kind of needs to happen and is happening more and more, is that those
I
two
agree.
concepts are starting to become more and more integrated, both in the medical field and in the psychological field, where on the psychological side, we're starting to really understand that trauma and feelings and emotions are held within the body. And I think on the medical side, to understand that a lot of the physical is held in the mind too. Does that make sense, Nedson?
Of course, and I would add to that. So I find you were aware enough and lucky enough to be able to, you've made the link directly. When somebody says that, it goes directly to my back. And for you, that you were able to do that, I would say it's not your brain, it's more your emotions that kind of are giving you a back. But not everybody has that capacity. And when it's like that, of course, if you have a back ache, walking will help you. It's going to strengthen your back. It's going to make you move. But for some people, it's not that easy to make that connection. It takes them a lot more effort and awareness to be able to say, oh, this is what I'm feeling when somebody says that, which
Can
makes
that,
it very hard.
can that be taught to people? Just like you just taught me in this conversation to, and I hope I remember, to move a little bit when I'm putting my emotions into my back. Now I remember I freeze. Now I will remember I freeze. So can you teach this to people in a psychological setting to try to be aware of their bodies in this way?
We try. This is mostly what I do with my approaches. I would say it depends on their capacity also, because again, sometimes the trauma in the body is so painful that they don't want to go there and they'd rather take a pill and deal with it instead of going there because it's going to be so painful. So I would say, yes, this is how it goes. Like we did that a little bit today when you are in trauma setting, or just bringing awareness to people how to connect the feeling to the sensation in their body, or the reaction and the response in the body. Because sometimes it's not just pain. Sometimes my heart is racing fast when I see something, or if I see somebody I like, or I see somebody I'm afraid of, my body might have the same reaction. My heart will start racing. So to be able to know this is the sensation and this is my body's reaction, what does it mean? Or where is it coming from? What's the trigger from the outside? That takes me to be able to have the mental capacity to be in my window of tolerance, which is like I'm present enough to know what's happening and what's triggering it. It may not be always accessible to everybody, but yeah, it can be taught. Not easy.
Okay, that's good.
Just to follow up on that, and the word that you brought up earlier, Nedzin, is safety. So to be able to do that, you have to feel safe, because now you're trying to get in touch with a part of yourself that's really scary and really vulnerable that you may not even have in your awareness. So being able to sit, this is why therapy is important, because when you're sitting with your therapist, hopefully you've built a rapport with them, you feel safe. And when the therapist says, okay, so when you're feeling a certain way, where do you feel it in your body? Where are you feeling it right now? Like you're talking about a very traumatic thing that happened to you. What are you feeling? For some people, for you, Inga, that came naturally. You said, the person said this, there goes my back. For someone else who's really not aware of that and never felt safe enough to even explore it, to be able to sit there and say, you know what, now that I'm thinking about this memory or whatever, this thing that happened to me, I can feel my stomach tighten up in a knot. Ah, now you have that first connection point, right? So now you can work on that and say, okay, so become more aware of that tightness. When does it happen in your daily life? So that's the precursor step to where you went to, Inga.
Yeah, that's in a way teaching them in therapy, teaching them to be aware of their body. That's great. That's a good tool. Like I said, you taught me. So see, this is a therapy session because I hate it when it goes to my back because you can really put it out. And people that are completely unaware in that safe place, you're right. And then there's inflammation and pain and stuff like that. So that's a great thing to be teaching when you're in their safety zone. What else? What other things can you do for people to like, because I think this is great, that whole disconnect from the brain and body to bring us back into balance with our brain and body connection. You guys are basically responsible to help people with that, bringing that back. So what kind of things will you do?
It's interesting because we've come a long way, like in the sense that I think as therapists, we all did this a little bit instinctively and understanding the mind-body connection, but now science is catching up. So we're seeing more and more studies come out about the gut microbiome. For example, we were just talking about the stomach and how the gut microbiome is so connected to our emotional states, and both ways, like the microbiota affects the way we feel, and the way we feel affects our gut bacteria. So it becomes like a feedback loop. So you can imagine in the example you just gave, Inga, like if somebody's very affected, like stress or anxiety or whatnot triggers their stomach, now it changes the acidity or composition of your stomach, which then changes the microbiome of your stomach, which then affects, it becomes a self-feeding loop. Now it affects how you feel, and so on and so forth. So I think that's another area where we have, as therapists, a lot more tools to be able to talk about this and concrete examples of what happens to the body because of the mind and vice versa, like how the two are not independent from each other. So earlier you were talking, Inga, about how the mind influences the body, but then the body also influences the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's good because with scientific proof, it makes it easier for people to even do their own research or for you to show them how completely connected they are so that they can become more aware. That's good because you're right. The whole disconnect seemed to happen in the whatever 50s, 60s, blah, blah, and they got worse and worse, and now it's coming back. It seems to be coming back. The awareness of the mind, body, soul connection, whatever, the whole thing, your spirit and everything. This is what you guys do now, more of, I guess, is this whole mind teaching people.
I try.
Yeah, that seems to be your specialty.
I mean, it's teaching, and when I say I try, because it's so much easy for people and to go back to thinking, and it helps the brain. It helps us come down when we understand. Staying connected to what we're experiencing is very hard. It's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. So we like it when it goes up, and it's like, yeah, I mean, we're above stuff, and everything is okay. So when I say I try, it's not just me. We try in the sense that it's changing habits. It takes lots of effort. It takes opening from the other party to be able to, yeah, let's explore. You were gently open to that. Yeah, let me explore. Oh, yeah, it moved something. Some people are reluctant to change. So it's not that, but yeah, there are some efforts that going in that direction.
Yeah, and I think you work quite a bit, Nedzin, on the somatic side, so connecting the body back to the mind and creating awareness of the body and whatnot. I work it more through the senses, so through nature therapy, through equine therapy, which brings you back to yourself, but via the horse as a mirror to some of these things, for example, or using nature like the senses and how you feel, like what you're picking up through your senses, which is also somatic as well. Like it goes through the body, obviously, but that's another way to ground yourself back into yourself. So these are all different ways. And Nedzin said, everybody reacts differently to them. Some people are more accepting is the wrong word. It's more like they feel more a connection to one.
Yeah, I see curious can be a good word in that.
Yeah, curious as well. Yeah. So it depends what your frame of reference is, and it depends what speaks to you. So everybody has a different way of connecting to it.
Yeah, I guess in that way, it's really good to have, as a therapist, many different avenues for healing. which is great. And there seems to be more and more. There's the nature therapy, the physical therapy, the breath work, I guess you getting to know your patient would feel them out and figure out what will heal them the best way, which they would take to better. Because the thing is, you definitely, as somebody seeking help, it's just if you go for a massage, they help you. But if you go back to doing all this awful things to your body and your mind-body connection for the next month, you go back, that's not the way to do it. You have to learn to help yourself, obviously. Everybody knows that. It's like music. You go to your lesson, then I learned a lot, and then you don't practice for the next month. You're not going to get anywhere, right? You really do have to find what that person really likes. Otherwise, they're not going to work on themselves between your sessions with them.
We actually provide them with tools. This is what we're talking about. When I say I work with somatic, it's a kind of a tool for me that allows me to see. It's my filter, which I see things about, while Daniela has her tools is the sensation. It doesn't work with everybody. Some people they need to be rational. It's having tools to provide for people, and they catch up on what's speaks to them, and from there we can go somewhere with them. Because if somebody is so afraid of what he's experiencing in their sensation, whether it's somatic or with the horses, we won't go far. We need to meet them where they are and then expose what we do, what we know, suggest. Sometimes they take it, sometimes not, and that's totally okay as well.
So what tools do you send them home with? Call it homework. Between sessions, say you have a session every month, what tools do you send them home with? Are they physical or are they mental? Or I guess it depends on the person, right?
I don't give the homeworks. I hate homeworks. I think Daniela doesn't give homeworks.
I do not give homework either.
I think we come from the same school. I think the psyche knows what needs to be done, what is said, what is worked. If I give you homework, and then again, you will feel obliged either to do it or to react towards it. You will feel not comfortable doing it or feel a failure. But I think the process of integrating what happened in the session, regardless of the length of time, is strong enough to get them where they want to. And I find once you have this connection, this is what I'm experiencing, we cannot lose it. So it stays with us all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I like to describe it a little bit like the movie The Matrix, where you either take the red pill or the blue pill. Once you've taken the blue pill, you can't unsee it anymore. So that's the process of therapy, is once you've made those connections, you don't need to solidify it with homework. You've made the connection. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? But in order to do something about it, you have to experience it. So it's all about experiencing it. It's not necessarily about artificially constructing it with some sort of homework kind of technique. And for some people, other modalities or whatever, that kind of approach with homework and things like that works, which brings me to the other point, that it's really important, if you are in therapy, for it to be a good fit between you and your therapist. It's not a one size fits all, and not everybody's good with everybody else. So it's one of the first things I say to people when I meet them for the first time. It's that it's really important that I am a good fit for them. So if I'm not, that's okay. I'm happy to refer them to someone else who might be. And that's how you end up working with somebody who's on the same wavelength as you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's absolute. And I suppose that some of that is even chemistry. That's just one of the words for it. When I was saying homework, I was more not mental homework, because who the hell wants to do that? I meant more, why don't you go out into nature or walk, but finding what would make that person happy. Some people, their back hurts too much to walk, so they might want to just pat a horse or just sit in nature, or maybe pick up a guitar or whatever. I was just wondering if you ever talk about that kind of thing with your patients.
It's actually amazing how it ends up coming up. I find, maybe it's different for you, Nidzin, but I find it comes up organically quite a bit. For a certain while, you're talking about what's going on in your life and patterns emerge. So then you might say something like, have you noticed that you've told me that every time You take your dog for a walk. That's the time when you reflect and you come back and you say, I thought of this. And it seems to me that walking your dog is a time for you, it's meditative for you. And then the person themselves will say, oh, yeah, it's true. I never really thought of that. Maybe I should take longer walks or take a walk in an area where it allows me to breathe more and think more. So it does come up quite naturally, like as opposed to me saying, maybe you should try this or maybe you should try that, which,
Yeah.
as we all know, we don't really enjoy it when somebody else tells us what to do. It's easier if it's for you, if it's coming from you to begin with.
Yeah. So you basically bring it out in them or in your conversation.
Actually, they bring it out.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
that
they
is.
bring it up, and there are new studies shows also that we know, each of us knows what's best for me. So I may give suggestions, but as you've mentioned, maybe take a walk, or maybe I really know what's best for me. So yeah, maybe if I would say, bring them to be aware of what's good for them. What makes you feel okay? What makes you feel good in that sense? I would let them be aware of, when I do, this is how I feel, and that's good. Because sometimes people are not familiar with feeling okay sensation. So in that sense, yeah, I feel okay, I feel good. This can be also a teaching or a learning.
Yeah, because that is part of the mind body connection, finding what creates those dopamines that can allow you to not run from the negativity in your brain, but to add pleasure.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that can heal the body slowly, especially if you're very tortured. Yeah. Anyway, so is it changing in your field? Is it becoming more and more? I suppose so. Through our conversation, it sounds like there's more. And even Daniela said that there's scientific proof now that brain body connection. I don't know if you obviously don't show people graphs and stuff like that, but people can go look at that themselves to start being aware of the connection so that they can be aware of their body hurting or feeling good if they're, like, say they get this great dopamine from laughing or from making a piece of music that sounds pretty, and then it makes them feel good. There's a lot more awareness of this now that they can go to themselves even. So this is a revolution coming back to the body, right?
It is, and as with all change, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a
No.
process. It seems to be going in the right direction, and there seems to be a lot more openness to these kind of ideas of mind-body integration for sure.
Yeah, more integrative therapies and modalities.
Yeah, like I don't know when I started hearing about it, but I know that Daniela, you use equine therapy, and we on the internet in an old folks home or somewhere where they're in pain, they'll bring a pony in or something, and it just brings them such joy. I suppose not they only show the good videos, I'm not sure, but this type of therapy seems awesome. Depending on the person, if you're afraid of horses, obviously it's not going to work. But this stuff seems to be new now, and I think it's wonderful. But like Nadine said, it all depends on the person, right? You got to figure out when you're in a session with somebody what might make them happy, because everybody's different.
And I would say it's tools. It may not be therapy, bringing a pony to somebody. It will make them happy. It doesn't resolve their problems, deep issues, but those are tools. And yeah, there are more and more. I think animal assistant therapies where the animal is there to help the therapist or to at least make the person feel safer. But again, those are tools.
Well, and the animal doesn't necessarily do the healing. What the
No.
animal does is it allows the person to maybe express some feelings and show some vulnerabilities that they wouldn't normally show. Because the animal acts as that, like you said earlier, that safe space, that safe entity. And again, like you said, Inga, if you're terrified of horses, that's not going to work, but because you're not going to feel safe. But for some people, it really allows the expression of emotions. And then that's where the therapy comes in with the therapist there as well. That person can now take that and help them dig deeper into that and understand it more and work on it and hopefully resolve something for them. Like Nedzin said, these are all tools. These are all ways to try to get at the person's inner experience so they can work on it, work through it, and heal.
Have either one of you ever, or do you know anybody that regularly, a psychologist regularly brings, I don't know, a bird or a cat or a dog or obviously not a pony, but into sessions? Do you know anybody who does that?
I had a colleague who used to have her dog all the time with her, but there are dogs who are trained to be in sessions as well.
Okay.
That her dog wasn't trained. She used to bring, and that would bring us joy because there's a puppy in the clinic.
Yeah.
But there are dogs that are trained.
And I have a colleague that actually does zootherapy with all kinds of different animals. And she brings them to nursing homes, she brings them to
Okay.
schools, particularly with kids, because sometimes if they've undergone trauma or something like that, something's happened at the school, they're a lot more likely to talk to the animals than they are to talk to an adult and then work with them that way. But yeah, they've got their place for sure.
Yeah, that's relatively new, only a few decades accepted, or
My guess is it was probably used in some fashion even before, it just didn't have a label on it.
oh, okay. Okay. It would work for me, but obviously like not people who are feel uncomfortable around animals, as in there's so many different people in the world, hard to find what's going to work for them. But these are things you hear about more because of the internet, the connection. It's one big think tank now. The world, even your people know, have seen these things. Your patients have seen these things. There's so many places to look to find ways to either heal yourself or different techniques and tools. And like you guys call them tools, and you're right, they're tools. But that was my idea of homework. Is it's just the tools to work on yourself between sessions, so that you might find that little thing, and then that deeper thing, and then that deeper thing. If you're walking not around other people, because they can be distracting, walking alone or whatever it takes. And that brings it back to the mind body thing, movement and stuff like that. It's getting away from the pills and into the movement. That's my idea of good. It worked for me. It worked for me.
And I also find people don't need homework. As you said, the internet is everywhere, and not just the internet. People always search for what makes them feel good. So they look for what makes them feel good, regardless.
Yeah, what gives them joy.
Yeah, so if somebody is not feeling okay, he's gonna or they're gonna look for something. What can I do? What can I do to help myself?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Better than running to the pills. But I shouldn't say that, because you're right. Sometimes there's enough pain that you need a combination of the two. But yeah, it's the mind-body connection. It never ends, because as you guys were talking, your mind just it so affects your body, and it can really hurt or feel really good. Those dopamines are amazing. I think they're addictive. Like when they say people get addicted to running because it's that dopamine, but that can be hard on your body. Any extreme is no good.
Yes.
So do you have people that do the extreme physical and end up hurting themselves, running from something and looking for the dopamine addiction?
Addiction is addiction. So all kind of addictions are dopamine looking for. You're looking for some kind of high, and the downs are always hard. So whether it's running, whether it's buying, whether it's shopping, whether it's sex,
Yeah,
whether it's alcohol, the down is always hard.
Yeah, the lack of dopamine.
And anything taken to its excess, right, could be an addiction and therefore have negative effects. Even something that would ultimately be thought of as positive otherwise can be like, I don't know, cleaning your house. Technically, that's a positive thing. You have a clean house. But if you do it all the time and it becomes addictive to you where you can't stop, if you start cleaning at one end and then you start all over again at the same end again, now all of a sudden it's taking over your life. It's not healthy anymore. It becomes obsessive and it becomes damaging to you.
Yeah, it's funny you brought my memory, and this was years ago. Somebody said that somebody was obsessive, and this specific obsessiveness was fear, obviously related somewhere back in their brain, but they couldn't drive because they would go outside their car and look in the front and then look in the back to see if there was a kid there or a ball or a dog. And then when they got back in the car, they couldn't trust that there wasn't something that they were going to run over again. Anyway, so it became obsessive and it became debilitating, and the person eventually can't go outside, right? That's how bad it can get. I remember that you brought that memory back to me, obsession, destroying your life. Like, it's good to look to make sure you're not going to hit something, but then it becomes torturous.
And that's usually the demarcation point, is how is it now affecting your life? Too much of anything and excess of anything, as long as it's pleasant and it's fine, that's one thing. But when it starts to become too much and it's negatively affecting your life in different ways, then it becomes problematic. So in Nedzin's example of shopping is great. Some people love to shop. That's fantastic. But when you're shopping so much that now you're in debt and you're not able to do anything else with your life, and you've got an accumulation of things you don't need, it's problematic.
Yeah. I think that's, people hear that's a common one too, the hoarding and the just purchasing and not when you don't need it, because it gives you that little dopamine and you become addicted to it. And there's so many obsessions. How do you, that stems from where in the brain, that upset?
That's a really complicated question, because some of it is learned, some of it could be biochemical, some of it could be, there's all kinds of different potential reasons for why that may happen. Some of it could be trauma induced, some of it could be, you name it. So again, there's no, I guess the bottom line today of what we're talking about is there is no one size fits all. So
Yeah.
one tool for everybody, there's no one way to look at what's going on with them, which is what makes our work interesting and challenging at the same time, because there's no real way to pinpoint something and say, there it is. That's it, solved, check. We're much more complex as human beings than that.
I would say this is what makes life interesting as well, and challenging, but interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our body chemistry, we can't seem to figure out, and our minds are even more vast, I think. But yeah, you're right. We should think of that as something good unless it's hurting you. That's you guys. That's your problem. You got to deal with the ones that are hurting. All the power to you, because there's a huge need for you guys looking in and solving pain.
So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of glimpse into your chosen subject there, Inga. I hope we've touched.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it looks like there's many advancements, so that's really good. And Nadine even gave me a therapeutic tool to use for myself, because it never stops happening. Your mind-body connection never stops happening. That's one of the things about being alive. So to not fear it. So you can go into an awkward situation now and fear it less, because you have a tool. There's something triggering. I've got a small tool. It doesn't take much. So that was very helpful for me.
Great. I want to thank you for taking the time to do this today, and for being so open, and for helping bring a subject to the surface that many people, I think, want to know more about, have wondered about, are dealing with right now. So I think this is going to be helpful to a lot of people. So thank you for doing this, Inga.
Very welcome. It was helpful to me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Inga.
Oh. You're welcome. Thank you, Nadine.
See you next time. Find out more at www.mentalizeacademy.com.